let me share the most important thing that I learned this week that I will use for the rest of my life. So, it took me 500 days to move on from a first crush. It took me 1 to move on from a second one. And now you may be asking how that's possible. Well, my approach was entirely different because I tried something else. You see, the first time, I decided to press hard on self-improvement. I decided to double down on discipline, to train harder, to work harder, to do even more discipline, to do even more gratitude, to do even more good things. And this obviously didn't work because it still took 500 days. So this time I did something completely different. I called my friend. I told him the situation. And after talking for 30 minutes, I had moved on because he had a story which was very similar to mine. And so I have learned that having a support network, having friends you can call and share things with is many, many times more important than doubling down on your good habits. Because the thing is, good habits are good, but when you are emotionally disturbed, doing the good habits and staying consistent on self-improvement becomes nearly impossibly difficult. When I doubled down on discipline in the first time, it worked for around 100 days, but after that it became more and more difficult. And because I had gotten used to being so hard on self-improvement, I then got into a downward spiral as I found it more and more difficult to follow through. And so that downward spiral, which came from having too high expectations of my self-improvement because I doubled down to be stronger, made things a lot worse. You see, these good habits, doubling down on them is good when you have an external problem like a tight deadline. When you have a tight deadline, obviously meditating will help, hitting the gym will help. But if you have emotional turbulence, emotional disturbance, not so much. In that case, it is much, much more effective to talk to friends about your problems. There is a large part of me that resists. I obviously knew that talking to friends can be good, but I resisted that lesson for quite some time because, one, I didn't have many friends, so I didn't really have that option. But two, I didn't want to seem like a beta male who is overly emotional and has to share things. This was a mistake, Looking like a beta male for 30 minutes is better than being broken for 500 days. And so it is useful to lose a bit of status for a short while than it is to have emotional problems deteriorate you for 500 days. This is what I learned. This is not to say, however, that you should be weak and emotional. I absolutely tell you to be as strong as you can be, to eliminate everything that can be eliminated, and to resist every temptation that needs to be resisted. But when you're already emotionally disturbed, you may as well just share it with your friends. And if your friends are good, masculine, and competent, it's gonna really help you. At least, this is what happened for me. I don't know whether it will help you, because there's important nuance. For instance, if your friends are stupid, it won't work. If you excessively talk about your problems, it also won't work, because then you're just chewing on your pain, and this is obviously not the way it's meant to be. So there's a balance with all things. There's a time where you can share your vulnerabilities, and there's a time that you need to alpha through and to just be the man and demonstrate absolute willpower. And essentially this week I learned when to use which. And I'm telling you, when you are emotionally disturbed, you can talk about it. When you are emotionally disturbed because there is some external thing like a tight deadline, then you can also talk about it, but then it is a lot more useful to persevere than it is to persevere in the other case. So when it is external, perseverance matters more. When it is internal, having a support network matters more. However, a support network can also support you when you have, for instance, a tight deadline. So find out when something works for you and then do it. Don't fear looking weak, because it is better to look weak for a few minutes than it is to look weak or to try to portray yourself as not weak for a very long time. You know, when you have people supporting you, it's kind of like being a chess piece that is covered by many of its own chess color. So if you have people supporting you, if you have other pieces covering you, if you're a chess piece, it is very easy to be emotionally balanced. In that case, insecurities, worries, anxieties, irritations, frustrations, and all these things become a lot less smooth if you have people supporting you. If you don't, if you are alone and surrounded by enemies, you are very likely to overreact, because after all, you're alone and you have to defend yourself. If you have to defend yourself, you're weaker, and thus smaller dangers seem bigger. So I encourage you to do what it takes to find your type of support that you need. Chances are, if you just share with your competent friends what's worrying you, you'll be very, very fast at moving on. And so after having learned that, you can move on very fast by just talking to people about your problems. I did the exact same thing. This is a kind of weak example, but I still wanted to share it because that's what I did yesterday. So, you know, I have a few videos, and I told my sister that the gap year videos got 5 dislikes and only 1 like. And it bothered me because I felt as if I had done the video with good intention, and I have collected many evidence from many people and then combined it into a video. But still it offended many people, and that kind of offended me. It started to worry me. So I told my sister, and she told me, well, it's obvious, because a gap year is, the people who like gap years are inclined to not be on self-improvement and to not be mentally tough. So it made sense that this video offended them. By the way, in this video, I'm a bit portraying myself as a bit weak myself, although I can be very strong at times, and I have faced many hardships. But this is besides the point. The point is that I felt weak. There is no point in trying to portray myself as not feeling weak. So I just shared it, moved on, and now I'm free. And now I feel kind of energized. Now I feel that I'm invincible, that I can handle hardships that are 10 times bigger. And this is amazing. This really excites me. And so, my name is Kirill. My goal is to inspire 10,000 good decisions, and we'll see you in the next one.